Welcome to My ADHD Relationship, your evidence-based guide to navigating love, friendship, and family life through the lens of ADHD. For so many of us, especially if you have a teen with ADHD, the whole topic of screen time feels less like a conversation and more like a daily battle. It can become this huge, constant source of conflict in the family, right? You ask them to get off their device, they say, yeah, in a minute, but then an hour goes by and they're still glued to the screen. It's just this exhausting cycle. You argue, you nag, and it just feels like they're being completely defiant. But what if we've been looking at this completely wrong? Okay, so here's the big shift we need to make. This isn't really a battle of wills. It's a mismatch between our expectations and how their brain is actually wired. So to find a real solution, we have to start by understanding the powerful neurological reasons why screens are just so magnetic for a teen with ADHD.
It really all comes down to a neurotransmitter called dopamine. You can think of it as the brain's feel-good motivation chemical. See, the ADHD brain has a tough time regulating it. That means it often needs way more stimulation than a neurotypical brain just to feel focused and engaged.
And that's exactly where screens come in. I mean, they are the perfect on-demand dopamine delivery system. Think about it. A video game or a social media feed gives you instant gratification, nonstop stimulation, and this is the most powerful part, unpredictable rewards. You never know when you're going to get the next like or level up. That variability is incredibly powerful and compelling for the ADHD brain. And that leads to this thing called the hyperfocus trap. Just imagine the difference between the high dopamine, exciting world of a video game and the low dopamine, totally predictable world of, say, homework. The brain gets completely locked in. And this isn't just them being really into it. It's an intense state of concentration that is neurologically very, very hard to break. So when your teen is deep in that state of hyperfocus and they don't seem to hear you calling their name, they are not actively choosing to ignore you. Their brain is genuinely struggling to disengage and switch tasks. And on top of that, screens are literally designed to be the path of least resistance. They don't require any of those tricky executive function skills, like planning or starting a task that the ADHD brain finds so challenging. So you can see the problem here. The more the brain relies on this easy bypass, the fewer chances it gets to actually practice and build those crucial life skills. It creates this kind of deficit loop, and it helps explain why so many of our go-to parenting strategies they just don't work. We so often rely on delayed punishments, right? Like, that's it, no phone tomorrow. But the ADHD brain has something called time blindness. It pretty much only operates in two modes, now and not now. Research is really clear on this. For a consequence to have any effect, it has to be immediate, like within seconds, and it has to be engaging. Otherwise, the brain just doesn't connect the action with the outcome, and all our nagging just turns into background noise. And there is another massive piece to this puzzle that we have to talk about: Rejection Sensitive Dysphoria, or RSD. Now, this is an incredibly intense, painful, emotional reaction to the perception of being criticized or rejected. It's a very common feature of ADHD. So think about what happens when you say, turn off the game now. Your teen might not just hear a simple request. Their brain, which is prone to RSD, can interpret that as a huge personal criticism, like you're rejecting them and the thing they enjoy. This can trigger a massive emotional outburst that seems completely out of proportion, but for them, that emotional pain is absolutely real. And that's how this whole painful cycle gets started. You, the parent, accidentally become the enemy, the dopamine blocker, who's always trying to take away the one thing that helps their brain feel regulated. Over time, that completely erodes trust. So how do we break this cycle? We have to shift from being their opponent to being their coach, using strategies that are actually brain-friendly. Okay, so the solution starts with using tools that work with their brain, not against it. Instead of just laying down the law, you start by validating their experience. Something simple like, I get it. I know this game really helps you focus and it's super hard to stop. Just that one step can completely diffuse the RSD trigger. From there, you can look at the data together, like their phone screen time report, and actually work together to co-create the limits. This totally reframes the entire dynamic. It's not about punishment anymore. It's about giving them ownership and a sense of control. And that brings us to the core idea of all of these solutions: thinking of technology controls as an external brain. The idea is simple.
Since their internal self-regulation skills, like impulse control, are weaker, we use external, neutral tools to do the heavy lifting for them. This isn't about spying on them, it's about building a scaffold for them. It's using the device's own features, like focus modes or app timers, to help them stick to the goals they helped set. It totally removes you from having to be the bad guy. Now, that moment of transition, going from the high dopamine screen to a low dopamine chore, that's the biggest flashpoint, right? So we have to bridge that dopamine gap. Using visual timers helps make the change predictable. And this is crucial. Allowing them to get to a natural stopping point, like finishing the level, actually respects their hyperfocus. Then, having a preferred, enjoyable activity lined up right after makes that shift so much smoother. So what's with the number 60? Well, this stands for what might be the single most important non-negotiable strategy of all, the 60-minute sunset rule. We know that poor sleep makes every single ADHD symptom worse. The blue light from screens suppresses melatonin, the sleep hormone. This rule is simple. All screens go dark at least 1 full hour before bedtime. It's a foundational habit for protecting their brain health. All right, let's pull all of this together. We've talked about how the unique wiring of the ADHD brain creates this conflict and how our traditional parenting instincts can sometimes make it worse. But the good news is we've also laid out a really clear, brain-friendly path forward. This table really says it all. You see the challenge, like hyperfocus? The brain driver behind that is difficulty with task switching. And the solution? Transition strategies. The problem of overuse is driven by weak executive function, so we build that external brain. And all the conflict and defensiveness, that's driven by RSD, so our solution has to be validation and collaboration. You see how each solution is specifically designed to address the neurological root of the problem? And that really is the ultimate goal, isn't it? By understanding the neurology and shifting your approach, you can move away from being the enforcer, the dopamine blocker, and become their ally. You become their coach, helping them learn to manage their own brain in this crazy digital world. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel so that you're notified when a new video is released. Thank you for watching. We look forward to seeing you soon.